Mewtwo has escaped the lab with his battle armor. Until July 31st, he'll be taking over gyms in Pokemon Go as a Tier 5 raid boss. I need you to bring him back. And to do so, I'm giving you the stats and graphs that we have on Mewtwo, so you can take him down. I'll also be letting you know about his battle power, if there is any, with that armor on. With Mewtwo's battle armor, okay, I'm giving up the accent, and the glasses, that kind of hurt my eyes. Okay, so things to note about Mewtwo Armored form. Even though it does have armor on, it is only a basic Psychic type Pokemon, not a Psychic Steel type Pokemon, just to clarify. And it has a max CP of 3187. So, as we predicted, yes, the attack stat is nerfed, only 182. Yeah, so for those of you that are unfamiliar with Pokemon Go stats, this is kind of a death sentence as far as its PvE viability goes. 182, there's no saving that attack stat. However, as a raid boss, Mewtwo is quite formidable. So it's packing the Confusion, which definitely harasses everything that isn't a Dark-type Pokemon, and it's packing the Dynamic Punch, which just wails on Dark-type Pokemon, so definitely a more threatening Mewtwo than we've ever experienced. It's also packing Future Sight to bring on some heavy Psychic-type damage. It's got Iron Tail as an alternative fast move, so Tyranitar, watch out for that Dynamic Punch and Iron Tail. We also got Rockslide, which is a really good neutral attack that keeps a lot of pressure on us raid attackers, and Earthquake to further bring the doom to, I guess, Tyranitar and Gengar specifically. Yeah, so I'd say it's a pretty imposing raid boss. Unfortunately, because of the stats, it's kind of like Psychic Regi, Regi-2 if you want to. So yeah, not that exciting. But the fight itself is pretty hard, depending on the moveset. And pretty cool looking, get Armor Hat Mewtwo. Now, as far as the counters go, I have whipped up two graphs for you. This one is focusing on the Dynamic Punch moveset. Now, the Dynamic Punch moveset with Confusion isn't the hardest Mewtwo moveset, but it is one that harasses the Tyranitar and keeps a lot of pressure on the Gengar, so it definitely limits your options more and allows the cream to rise to the top. And the cream, of course, here being is the Giratina Origin form. With even at its level 28.5 breakpoint, it is able to achieve the trio with matching the Relobby Avoid TDO. Basically, the x-axis on this graph is your tankiness, which is your propensity to have to relobby or not. And then the y-axis going up is your damage per second. It takes 50 damage per second to solo a raid boss, so 25 to do a duo, and then here 16.666667, or 6 repeating, to do the trio. Now if you're curious about the quad is 12.5, so you can make like an imaginary line here, and as long as your Pokemon are above that, you may be able to make the quad. Every time you do relobby though, it does up the ante on how much damage per second you need to take down the raid boss, because that's like however many seconds of you doing 0 damage per second, and damage per second is an average over time, so just keep that in mind if you're blindly using these graphs to try to do a quad or a trio. So best contender, definitely the Origin form here. We also have Mewtwo, Shadow Ball Mewtwo, betraying his armored brother with more attacking power and the Legacy Shadow Balls, so keep that in the back of your mind. And then Gengar. Yeah, both Lick and Shadow Claw have the same level of performance at this level, and then I did a purple line and a red line to split the Shadow Claw and the Lick. So Shadow Claw has a breakpoint at level 28. Conveniently enough, that's also a bulk point at level 28, so you can see here the difference between the two moves at this breakpoint. But as you power up Gengar, it evens out over time. And then down at level 23, which is also conveniently close enough to a bulk point as well as Lick's breakpoint, Lick takes the lead once again. Now, this Lick is at the trio worthy DPS, but you are past the double relobby avoid TDO, so you might not be making the trio with level 23 Lick Gengar. It's just throwing that out there. Also, with the Deoxys attack form up here, it doesn't have any peak lead DPS, Same with the Gengar. If you're familiar, it's like in the lead slot, some Pokemon are able to explode in their DPS in the beginning due to the circumstances of the beginning of the fight, but that's not really present here. Also, the Deoxys attack form has a level 39 breakpoint, but its performance isn't all that different than it is at level 40, so yeah, we just got 1 point here. If you have a maxed out Deoxys attack form for taking down Psychic type Pokemon or Ghost type Pokemon, you could bring it in, and it really wouldn't be that bad of an option. But I really wouldn't recommend powering one up specifically for this fight. It might be a bad investment. Then of course I got some rainy bugs here, just letting you know how they're doing. So Yanmega, definitely with the resist here on the dynamic punches, and Pinsir and Scizor, not that bad. Now you will also notice that I have 3 grayed out Pokemon. Yeah, so 2 of these boys here are Gen 5s. We got Chandelure and Volcarona. Definitely really cool Pokemon. We got Ghost Fire and Bug Fire. With the Hex Shadow Ball moveset and the Bug Bite Bug Buzz moveset. So I'm pretty excited for these guys to come out in Gen 5. When's Gen 5 coming? I don't know. Now I do have some more Gen 5 info dropping later this week, so if you haven't subbed to SwagTips already, sub to SwagTips today. And then over here we have the Gen 4 Mythic Pokemon, Darkrai. Darkrai is like the nightmare version of the dream Pokemon Cresselia, so they got like a relationship together that way. I'm half expecting this guy to show up as either a EX raid boss or just a general raid boss in the future, but I could see it still, you know, keeping the mythic pattern there and being relegated to research rewards. So we'll see what they end up doing with Darkrai. But Darkrai is pretty spicy dark type. Other cool Pokemon to point out here, we have the Drifblim, and even though you probably don't want to max out a Drifblim, at level 39, that's the pre-break point, right? It's actually doing still quite well. So yeah, if you got a highly powered up Drifblim or maybe like a level 35 perfect IV wild caught one on a windy day or something, definitely not a bad option to bring in this fight. And another cool thing here is Salamence. This is Draco Meteor and Bite. So if you've got a Salamence already, you know, riled up, just drop a fast move TM on it for the Bite move, and it's going to be pretty awesome. But definitely not one of the best options for this fight overall. Then next up, I have counters to Rockslide. Now you might be thinking, Ryan Swag, what about Future Sight? That's how we show off our dark type Pokemon. Well, I'm trying to get you guys prepared for the, you know, general hardest scenarios. This is the best the dark types got without having their hand held the entire time, right? And yeah, you can see that Tyranitar definitely picks up the pace, being ever so slightly behind the Giratina. Now, important thing I want to know about Tyranitar. Tyranitar is a very powerful and reliable option against most Psychic-type raid bosses. Obviously, Armored Mewtwo is kind of a special case, which gives a lot of harassment to the Tyranitar, and even though it doesn't have any resistances to Dark-type attacks, Tyranitar is still missing the Trio DPS. So if you're trying to go for the Trio, Tyranitar, or any of the Dark types really, probably aren't going to be it. So just a small caution there. And then as far as the double relobby of Void TDO and the relobby of Void TDO is like 5.55, so not even Metagross meets that. But if you are able to dodge Rockslide somehow, it's a pretty fast move, then you could meet that relobby of Void TDO, most likely with Tyranitar, Metagross, and the Giratina here. And of course, Mewtwo, definitely a powerful secondary option, and Gengar, still bringing the heat despite being weak to Confusion and not appreciating the Rock Slides. Then as far as the rainy bugs go, I only decided to include Scizor because I'm lazy. Sometimes in these graphs, like, everything just kind of meshes over each other, and I figure these guys are getting wailed on by the Rock Slide, and you already know how good they're doing from the last graph. So yeah, definitely Yanmega and Pinsir, not bad options here in the rain either. And then we get a cool little showcase here. We got Raikou with the Shadow Ball, doing pretty hot. Rainy weather will boost its fast move, but it's not going to be that impressive. But overall, I'd say if your goal is to just counter Armored Mewtwo in just a general sense, going with like level 30 Giratina Origin forms and going with your Shadow Ball Mewtwo's is probably going to be your best bet. If you're a more casual player, you don't have access to these high-end Pokemon, well, any Lick or Shadow Claw Gengars will also be pretty spicy additions. If you only have Hex and Shadow Sneaky Punch, what is it? Sucker Punch. If you only got Sucker Punch ones, then that's not that bad either. And then if it's raining outside, definitely go with the bugs. And if you don't have high-end premium options, any Ghost, Bug, or Dark-type Pokemon you can throw at this thing will get the job done. Just make sure you're in a group of people with at least 5 or 6, and you won't have anything to worry about there. Now let's talk about Armored Mewtwo in the meta. Well, for PvE, which is raiding and gym attacking, yeah, Armored Mewtwo ain't it. Like, 182 attack stat, there's no salvaging that. Like, you'd have to have some crazy, ridiculous, like, attack, like, special to it, signature move, if you will, to do anything in PvE content. So, yeah, save your Stardust. Master League is save your Stardust. Yeah, Mewtwo's just Mewtwo candy. Mewtwo armor form, Mewtwo candy. That's what we're talking about. And it's not small enough for the Great League either. Like, it's CP too high, even with an unlucky trade. So you don't have to worry about him bouncing in there. So what do we have left but the Ultra League? Now, the Ultra League is dominated by Giratina, so definitely not happen for Mewtwo Armored form as a Giratina counter. However, Giratina counters are countered by fighting types. Confusion wails on those fighting types. So in that sense, Mewtwo Armored form sort of has a similar role to Deoxys Defense form and Jirachi in the Ultra League meta. Unfortunately, I feel like it's a little bit more flaky than those two are as far as the role goes, because when it comes to countering the Giratina counters, I feel like Jirachi, Mew, and Deoxys Defense form are able to do that job a lot better than Armored Mewtwo can. Like, Dynamic Punch is threatening, but it is just a bit too slow with Confusion. So even Steelix can best the guy. Like, Steelix with Crunch is faster than those Dynamic Punches. So if you're slower than Steelix, it's kind of telling. So overall, I'd say Mewtwo Armored form, definitely not worth pumping Stardust in. It could have been a little bit more interesting if it got the Steel subtyping, because then it could have more resistances. But at a base, cool trophy Pokemon. So that's all I got on Armored Mewtwo form. I hope you guys are now prepared to take it down. Maybe you got a good idea of how to do the trio Giratina origin form. And then as far as the meta use goes, definitely a meta flop. We got Regi-Mewtwo on our hands here, so definitely not that hot. Now, if you enjoyed this content, you want to see more like it, maybe you want my spicy Entei content, which is coming up tomorrow, well then subscribe to SwagTips. And if you got any questions on this content, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. SwagTips. I'm going to be so excited for that to not be part of my life after I'm done moving here.